times some algorithm for how much armor they have on or whatever have you. If you go up and you hit something and only do 2 damage, stop hitting them. Like, you are not doing, you are just wasting your turns. All right, so let's go see why we're not seeing stamina real quick. Let's go to the status bar. All right, so we don't have stamina exposed on iPlayer. So let's go look where let's start at the very beginning. On game object. We've got dexterity and hit points. Let's look at iActor. Let's go into iPlayer. So the player stamina is on the base actor. So when we return the iPlayer contract, we only have access to what's available here. So let's go ahead and just add int stamina. We've got a getter and setter. Let's put that here. Let's see. Trophium says that I can feel free to blatantly brag about my organization. It's pretty spot on. Thank you. I will try to not let that go to my head. It will in some way. But I've got my fiance to bring me back down to reality. And then Tristan says, how do you handle error checking with design patterns like this? So that's going to be another question for your personal software process or your coding style. And if you go into a team, it's a great question to ask, because one of the challenges of team coding is to have everything look as if it was written by a single voice inside of a project. And that requires a lot of discipline, and sometimes you adopting practices that differ from your personal software practice. You can say, well, I wouldn't do it this way. It's not my preference, but this is the way the team expects it. Error handling is going to be a great example of that. You're going to find people that are going to say, and here's another phrase you're going to hear a lot, that only throw exceptions for exceptional things. And another one you're going to find is just let nulls propagate up and didn't do a null check. So regardless of what you're looking at, whether you're doing a null check to avoid a null reference exception or you're catching the exception with the try-catch block, I think the base concept is the same, where you're talking about something bubbles up through your framework or your code that can't be interpreted by your presentation tier. So you're saying, how do I handle things that can't be interpreted by the presentation tier elegantly? And so if we're talking at that high level, then we're talking about, well, we want to trap those things and then wrap them in something that can be interpreted. And then in that wrap, I want to do whatever logging or alerting I need to. So I think the best way for it to approach it is to let whatever you're going to bubble up, whether it's an exception, a null reference, a set flag, let it bubble up all the way to the calling layer. So in this case, it would be the game engine. Hang on. So here's my core, and you can see that I'm not doing any kind of try catches here. I'm not doing any kind of null checks. So I want all that to be done by my rendering engine, right? And my command parser. So when I get in here and execute, this is where I want to try and then catch. And then I'm going to be catching an exception with EX, right? And this is and every time we touch this thing, again, we're saying, man, we really don't want to keep doing the same thing 4 times over again. We really need to refactor this into something smarter. And yeah, so this is your continual red flag and your continual kind of like note to self. So, and the benefit for me of doing it here is, let's say that execute might be able to throw one or like several different types of exceptions, right? So in C#, I can keep catching. And we want to do it with this kind of increasing intention. So exception should be the last one we check for, but catch, argument exception, EX, right? So this is where I want to do all my catching, is at this layer, which is my calling layer, which puts the responsibility back on the layer previously, so like the target layer, to tell me what exceptions can be thrown. And you can do that in C# by setting an XML comment. So I'll just give it a quick example. So on execute, so here's all my, if I just do this in ReSharper's really good about it. I think this is ReSharper. I can do this. And I forget, hang on. I forget the syntax for it. I'll just grab this guy. All right, so you can start decorating this. I believe this is it. All right, so you can start decorating, and this is what also comes into making like a really good API and doing a lot of your due diligence. So I can say argument exception, and then when I hover over execute, I'll get, and let's just go back over real fast and just say, in very simple terms, this will execute the request and return a response. Nothing crazy, but request. I'm going to delete also in a second the response. So what's cool about this is when I'm here and hover over it, I want to be able to see this information so that as an API, when I'm writing my try catches, I can write catches for all of the possible exceptions, right? So this is another reason why it should happen here. And it's actually, for me, it's a great technique that I don't use often enough, because it actually takes a lot of work to really properly form an API, and we all cut corners. But to answer the question in the longest way possible, I always put the responsibility of trapping on the calling layer, and the responsibility that I put on the other layers, the business logic and all of that, is to provide an interface and an API that's going to be very clear to the caller what to expect, and when something goes wrong, what's going to go wrong, so they can code against it. You're welcome, Tristan. That's actually a great question. So let me go ahead and remove this. Actually, I'm just Control-Zing all this back out. And convert high mind, automate all this stuff. And it feels good. It feels, when you come in, you can see all this stuff. It represents a complete thought. Okay. All right. Stamina. Yes, we wanted to. The last little thing we wanted to send out what the player's stamina was. And that's going to be in render. Player. Stamina. Okay. So, and again, we always, a player always had stamina, but it wasn't a part of our contract. It wasn't a part of the iPlayer abstraction that we were exposing to the API. So we couldn't see it. So all we did was we said, hey, in addition to player type, add inventory, equip weapon, blah, 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 we also want to see stamina. And by making it part of the iPlayer, it says, hey, whatever implements iPlayer must have stamina. And then we satisfy that because base actor has stamina. And again, sorry if I'm going too quickly, but it's some of the OOP stuff we've been covering for the last 6 weeks. So iPlayer says, hey, whatever implements me should have stamina. Base actor says, I have stamina. And iPlayer says, that's cool. and player can use all the things from base actor. And then iPlayer kind of becomes the watchdog. I don't know if I explained it correctly, but anyway, close enough. So, as our last thing, let's just go ahead and hit start. Boom. All right, so now I'm here again, and I've got 140 health. I've got 20 stamina. So if I fight Beth, my stamina goes down to 18. If I heal Beth, 16. Heal Beth, heal Beth, heal Beth. Fight Beth, fight Beth, fight Beth, fight Beth. All right, so here's where we start talking about, not only do I want to be able to check for when Beth is dead, right? And then stop her from receiving any actions or being able to initiate any requests. I also want to check for stamina. So once you run out of turns, you can't do anything else. And this is where the this is where the really the mechanics of the game start to shine, because we're saying you're going to have problems to solve, things to repair, things to fight, things to negotiate with, and you've only got 20 rounds to do it. So how do you spend those turns? So good. So we're really getting into it here, and I am going to start shutting down because I think that's all the time I have for the day. I apologize again for the late start. Very happy that you guys waited around for me to come online. I really appreciate that. Eshkatite said he was very scared. He wasn't very scared, but was concerned, and I definitely appreciate that, and I apologize again. Get your last chats in on closing down here. I'll go ahead and commit this to GitHub. So if you want to grab it and look at the code, you can. And I'll be figuring out what pattern to do next week. I think it's going to be working more on the interpreter over here, doing some refactoring on that, and really applying the interpreter pattern or maybe the adapter pattern. I don't know, but this is where we're going to be. This is definitely going to be where we're going to focus. And then I think we're advanced enough to where as we implement the next pattern, we can also be adding in more and more functionality and richness to the game, just like we did today. So thanks for hanging out, and I'll check in and then do my last goodbye when I'm done.